for me, it was almost like a little buffet when she's like, oh, we could talk about this, talk about that. I was like, oh man, I was ready to fill my knowledge plate. Welcome everybody in. It's another episode of the NiceJob Podcast. Now, my guest joins us. She's known as the law firm mentor. She's the owner of 2 successful companies, founder of the Williams Law Group, a full-service family law firm. She's a fellow, the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, certified, New Jersey State Supreme Court, on and on and on. But I'm just going to call her Allison Williams because that is her name. Allison, thank you so much for joining us here on the NiceJob Podcast.
Sean, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I hope I live up to it, and I'm excited to be here. We're talking about one of my favorite topics, so I can't wait.
And as I mentioned in the intro, you're from in New Jersey is where you are now, correct?
Correct. I am in northern New Jersey.
Yeah, so I grew up a bit in southern New Jersey, in the Philadelphia area, also in and around Philadelphia as well. So for those that may have grown up on the West Coast, Alice and I being on the East Coast here, we might start talking a little bit faster here, but don't worry. We'll let you keep up. For some reason, everyone tells me when I have an East Coast guest on that my East Coast talking speed comes out. But there's a lot we could kind of say about this. And I want to go in, Allison, before we dive into our topic today, just to learn a little bit about you and where you started to develop a passion, not just for, the industry that you did, but you serve as like a business coach, you try to help other people. Where did that passion come from? When did you kind of discover that you didn't want to just get it on your own, but you wanted to make sure to kind of spread the wealth and help out others?
Yeah, so I started a law firm in 2013, and I think I was somewhat unique, but also somewhat like everybody else that starts a law firm. You think I'm a good lawyer, so I'll just do business, and I'll do business on my own instead of doing business with someone else. And I thought, okay, I know how to generate clients. By the time I started in business, I had a book of business of a few $100,000. So I wasn't really afraid of not being able to support myself. But I thought, okay, I'll start, I'll staff up, I'll get going. And very quickly, I found that business ran me over. I was mentally and emotionally exhausted every single day. There were all these feelings of inadequacy that came up of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel comfortable. I can't get into a groove. I can't seem to get the work done. I can't seem to get the hours billed. I'm billing the hours, but I can't get the business taken care of. And there was just this persistent state of exhaustion. And so the easy thing, the intellectual thing is, all right, go hire someone. But even then, I went on a path of hiring secretaries to start, and I'd hire one person after another, and I thought I was speaking English and giving clear instructions, and my work wasn't getting done the way that I wanted, and I wasn't able to move them, and I couldn't be in court and also spend enough time with them to get them where I needed them to be. So I was overwhelmed. And after a significant period of time of trying to work with staff, I finally said, you know what, I just can't do this anymore. I fired the third person and said, I'm just going to do this on my own. So I every day would drive 40 plus minutes to work, stupid as it was that I work so far away from my office, but live so far away from my office, but that's another issue. So I said, all right, I'll get up in the morning. I'll be a secretary from 6 to 9, a lawyer from 9 to 6, a secretary again from 6 to 9, and I'll work the 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. shift 7 days a week, and it'll all get done. And after about 6 weeks of that, I finally had a little break in clearing, and my schedule was clear on a Friday. So on Thursday night, I'm driving home, and I'm very anxious to get into the bed so I could come in late at 7 a.m. in the morning and only stay until 7 p.m. that night. I was going to have a 12-hour day. I was so urgently excited about that. Got home, or rather headed home. And next thing you know, I woke up and I was, driving 90 miles an hour and came this close to a guardrail. So that was kind of okay, this is definitely not for me. This stuff is for the birds. I'm going to use my PG language. So I decided I was going to sell myself to the highest bidder working for a large law firm, got myself a very cushy partnership offer at a large firm. And then on the way there, had another aha moment in the car of, why am I doing this? So decided I didn't want to relinquish my law firm. I didn't want to close up shop and go work for someone again. I wanted to keep it, but I wanted it to work for me. I wanted to not be miserable. I wanted to not uh, be in the state of constant exhaustion. And I started working with business coaches, and it took a while for me to find the right blend of the right people helping me in the right ways. But in a matter of 3.5 years, I went from $0 to a multi-million-dollar business. And now that business, the Williams Law Group, requires about 5 to 10 hours of my week. And candidly, by 2018, I was completely bored. I had nothing to do other than general administrative CEO oversight. And I said, well, okay, well, what is it that I have to spend my time on? Some people want not to work, and that's great. And I don't judge that, but that wasn't for me. So I really started thinking, where do I find my passion? And I loved teaching, and I loved training, and I loved coaching, and I loved facilitating. So I became a business coach, and January 2018, launched Law Firm Mentor. And it took us 2.5 years of kind of figuring out what I would sell and how I would sell it and how I would combine people to do it. But now we are a 7-figure business in the coaching company, and we help lawyers all across the country, I tell lawyers all the time, I am the law firm mentor, and my company helps solo and small law firm attorneys to grow their revenues, to crush chaos in business, and make more money. And the crushing chaos piece is all about the system of everything. So we help people focus on not just doing the marketing and the sales and the people, but creating a system of sustainable activity in those different areas so that other people can do those things for you, whether you want to outsource the entirety of your business and not do anything but be a shareholder and accept the money, or if you want to work in your business in one particular area and you want other people doing activity around you or beside you, it needs to have a system in order to reduce the time and energy devoted to figuring things out and having people just focused on doing the work. So that's what we help lawyers do. We are helping lawyers in all different practice areas. Right now, we are in excess of 20 states. The number bobs up and down depending on the day, but we're touching a lot of states. I hope to actually touch every state in the union by the end of this year. That's our aggressive goal. And it's my heart passion.
And the legal profession shares a little bit of a similarity with a lot of some of the NiceJob audience are home service professionals. And I think a similarity that people might not see on the surface, but is absolutely true, is sometimes the general public, or your future clients, future customers, might just look at the people practicing within that industry as purely just like the skill set. But a law firm is a business, and there's a lot, I don't want to get into, mission statements, things like that. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of expenses that comes to do things. So you need to make sure that there's, money in your pocket to continue to do so, serve more people, things like that. And it's the same for home service professionals. A lot of people sometimes get into the business because they love cleaning carpets and then have to kind of figure out the business side of it. But sometimes the general public might just look at them as just the skill and not the business on their own. And that's where things of pricing and things of that tend to come up. One of our guests, Jarrett Correa, talked about complex businesses, and he kind of put law firms along with home service professionals in that same sort of thing. Is complex businesses, one of the biggest issues that they'll face when it comes to trying to fill their funnel, get clients in the door, is because of that wide sort of net, is so many people can contact them and say like, hey, can you do this type of law? Or hey, can you clean this type of thing? And it's not correct at all. When you talk about getting someone to go from an interested party to a client or a customer, how important is it to really, when you talk about building that system, to look at kind of that front end of, okay, what are they finding? What should they expect from you at the very top? Is that where you would tell someone to start at that top filtering stage? Or if you're looking to really convert clients and customers, things like that, do you start from the back end up? So, all right, what's the last step or the first step? In your opinion, where do you want to start if someone is completely lost?
Well, so you combined in that question both marketing and sales, right? So the front end in a professional services firm would be the marketing piece. Who is the ideal client that you want to serve, and how are you going to create a message that is custom tailored for that person, so that mythical person, if I'm talking to Steve and Steve is my ideal client, Steve has demographics, geographics, and psychographics that will build out who he is, how he thinks, where he associates, and where I put my messages, how I craft my messages, what will appeal to him. So we have to know that in order to know that we're going to have a higher likelihood of having people call your office that actually want the service that you provide, so that you're screening them out before they even call, so that when they call, they have a greater likelihood of scheduling. Then you have two sales processes in the traditional professional services firm. So you have your intake process, which is the selling of the appointment, right? I've got some distress. I have a legal matter. I've got to get an answer. You're not at that point selling them the solution. You're selling them the immediate resolution of their urgency, which is to come in and have an appointment. And then once they get to your office, the second part of the sales process is consultation. So that's where you're selling them whatever your legal service is. And you can have, chinks in the armor, if you will, at either of those sales processes. If you're in the process of intake, it's how are you engaging with them? What types of questions are you asking? Are you making sure that they have the legal problem that you solve? Are you making sure that they are the type of person that you want to work with? And the bigger your firm gets, the more broad your type of person tends to be. But when you are a super solo, right? If it's just you and a secretary, or you and one other attorney, you need to be very laser focused on making sure that the people that come in don't become the problems of tomorrow that you don't want to work with, resist doing their work, resist communicating with them, and then get ethics grievances and malpractice lawsuits. So you have to screen them in appropriately. But even then, you have to want to get them in the door. So some of that is, how do you convey value to them? How do you ask them questions to find their urgency so you can offer them a solution coming in a way that they say, yes, I've got to do this right now. And for most practice areas, we recommend that you charge for that consultation. So you set the tone right away that your service, your time is worthy of compensation. You're not a free agent. You're not working on behalf of the state through, paid through taxes. You are a for-profit entity. And you set that tone appropriately when you charge at the start point of the relationship, which is when they come in. Then once they come in, you have to have a sales process again, and that's just a furtherance of the intake process.
Yeah, I guess my mistake almost there, not my mistake, but I guess I made it a little bit more difficult to answer that, kind of combining those two processes there. So just to kind of go on the front end to dive into the marketing element, what are the building blocks of a successful marketing plan that's going to also be kind of like reoccurring? Because sometimes so much, I think we might see it a bit more in home service professionals is, there's the sale, there's the deal, there's the time of year, there's the spring cleaning. But ultimately, you want to create a system that's going to allow you to kind of have reoccurring revenue. What are some building blocks for a marketing plan that's going to lead to that sort of process?
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways to create that consistent recurring revenue. We teach this in one of our signature programs called Marketing for the Masters. And the idea is that you want to create a plan that has different funnels to drive people in. And those different funnels are going to come from different places. So you want to have a marketing funnel, let's say for networking, right? So who are you speaking to on a regular basis that can refer you people? And you want to fill that pipeline of referral sources so that you're consistently getting leads in and you're not dependent on one particular law firm or business owner who could be referring you someone. Then you want to be thinking about digital and offline strategies. So now, of course, everyone goes onto a website to check out the person or company that they would be buying from. So it's really important that your web presence convey that you solve the problem that they have, that you are concerned about them. So your website, especially your homepage, should be very much focused on, do you have this problem? And you're talking to that person, not here's my pedigree, here's my law license, here's my name, rank, serial number certification. But you're really conveying to them that this is the place that you come to get this particular problem solved. And then you want to have, of course, something that drives them, a call to action that gets them to contact you from the website. Then typically digital marketing is also going to include some type of paid advertisement. Now, smaller firms may have limited budget here, but even with $500 a month, you can start to create a digital imprint and drive some immediate traction through pay-per-click marketing. So we highly recommend that be at least one of the strategies that you consider very early on so that you can get some immediate influx of cash, because every person you serve is connected to other people. So if I get one client through the door, that person's happy I can ask that person, do you know anyone like you? Because your clients who have previously purchased are most likely to buy from you again. So you get that person not just looking to work with you again, because it may be a one and done service, or you get that person to look for friends, family connections, relatives that they can pull into the web of wanting to work with you based on how quality your service was. And once you have all those different funnels, and of course, that was a very small smattering, but once you have different funnels, then you want to talk about how you can get things on your calendar to make sure that you're driving people in. So I always tell lawyers, don't just have a general idea of when I have time, I'm going to go to a networking event, or when I have time, I'm going to update my website. These things need to go on the calendar at the start of the year, whether the start is today is March 18th and I'm starting today, right? That can be the year start. But as soon as you decide you're going to have a marketing plan, start a year count, and you need to put it on the calendar and diary out. And some things may change, but for the most part, you need to have all of your funnels getting some form of touch point every single month in order to consistently drive people in, so that you're not in a situation where we stop marketing because we got plenty of clients, then we start serving those clients, and then, oh crap, we're out of money, we're out of people to serve, then we have to go hustle to start marketing while we're broke and distressed.
Yeah, it's hard to convey that of when you're looking to grow, of understanding that growth is consistent in the sense of there's not like, all right, we're at growth point A, now we're going to growth point B. You know, I love that idea of every month or something like that, marking down, like checking on your website and those type of things. Because even if you have something that is pretty robust, is pretty set, perhaps if you're using a service, I mean, the full disclosure, like NiceJob, we have one here actually called Convert. Like even something like that where you know, it's kind of fully managed, is by checking in and finding out and checking it perhaps against other metrics and other numbers. So, okay, my website has this type of conversion rate. These are the amount of leads I'm seeing. These are the amount of, you know, clients that we're actually able to book and, you know, able to close and get agreements with. Knowing where those numbers are will also give you the idea of figuring out what might need the most attention short term and what you can maybe put off a bit later and focus on long term. Because we see so many websites where, you know, you see like the staff isn't fully there, like they haven't updated. So they're growing, but they don't put the time in even just to fix those small little things, because that could be, I don't want to say a turnoff, but, you know, if you're hiring a firm and then someone shows up to, you know, for a meeting and you haven't seen them on the website, you haven't seen them, they're not mentioned, it perhaps puts off a little bit of a weird aura. And that brings us into the element of trust and reputation. I would love to kind of get your take on it, because with lawyers in particular, I always wondered, as someone not in the law profession, of what are some ways that you can help build and harness that reputation when you also may be dealing with some sensitive matters, you know? The home service professional, like, look, I don't really care who you tell you cut my lawn, it's just my lawn. Mm-hmm. But if it's a legal case or something like that, perhaps I don't want to expand it out. Is there a way? Is there a metric? Is there a strategy that perhaps in the customer journey or the client journey, where you can help build that rapport and build some reputation, but then ultimately use that for marketing purposes?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I do know that there are a lot of lawyers that have a lot of resistance around even asking their clients, because if I represented you in a nasty divorce where you lost custody of your child because of a substance abuse problem, and then ultimately we were able to get that turned around, you're probably not going to want to say to the whole world, hey, my lawyer's so great. When I was drinking, they were able to get me my child back, right? So there is some issue there. But for most people, for most practice areas, there's going to be some area where a person is particularly open and they're happy with the service and they're willing to give a testimonial. And testimonials have so much power. I mean, just nowadays, I think it's over 65%. I'm not sure, you probably have an updated stat on that, in terms of the extent to which someone considers online reviews and online recommendations relative to personal referrals. And it's almost neck and neck, the extent to which someone would rely upon a personal referral relative to a reputation of, the lawyer based on the testimonials. So I usually say to people, you really have to have a system. Everything should have a system. That's like, I tell people we crush chaos through our systems, but you really should have a system for soliciting referrals, and do so in such a way that it starts to ingrain in the person, this is something that's naturally a part of what I do when I interact with a lawyer. So instead of waiting until the end of the case and the client is happy and the client wants to forget that they ever knew you, not because you weren't wonderful, but because this was a difficult time in their life, you want to get them educated from day one. So they come in for the initial consultation, you have them surveyed and giving you feedback. They, hit the first touch point, they sign the retainer agreement, you have them surveyed and giving you feedback. 3 months into the case, you're doing something, whether it's, a certain milestone or just a certain number of days, you're getting that feedback from them. And then at the end of the case, again, you're getting feedback. Now, there are programs, and I'm sure you can talk about this, because you have the software, but programs where you can actually prompt upon the delivery of feedback, if it's positive feedback, to automatically go ahead and share that to Facebook, Google, Bing, Yahoo, etc., all the different places, so that that information immediately goes into the public domain. So that's getting it out there. And then you have to market it, right? So having the testimonials is great. And yes, people can see it when they search your business online. Google My Business has an opportunity for people to leave reviews there. But you also want to be promoting to the public, sharing your wins. So part of that is what I highly recommend is social media marketing, right? So take pictures with your clients, right? They don't necessarily have to, your client obviously has to consent to that, but you don't have to share to the world what you help them with. Right? You have a general practice that has 4 or 5 practice areas. They know that something that you did benefited this person, but let the person kind of speak about what means, what was valuable to them. And then that immediately goes out into the public domain. It gives additional validation of what the person had to say. And then when people are leaving reviews, doing something as simple as just clipping a copy of the 5-star and the commentary of the client, whether it is well written, well spoken, well articulated or not, having that communication from Stacy P, from John D, from Alex W, is something that further gives support, so that people are being inundated with information. And what I like to refer to it as is omnipresence, right? They're kind of everywhere. You can be everywhere when you start taking little pieces of big content and smattering it in all the different social media channels, because you never know who's going to see what when.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. You talk about some of the stats there. There was one that we saw recently through a study that, advertisements that feature a review snippet saw upwards some like a 300% increase in click-through rate. And part of the analysis from there came down was when someone kind of sees something, I'll use a restaurant for example, and I go, like, Allison, you're gonna love this restaurant. Like it is the best. You're probably thinking one of two things. You're like, okay, that was really, really good. Or you're thinking, Sean's a very excitable guy. He saw a TV show he saw was the best TV show in the world, and then the next day another TV show was the best show in the world. But it might pique your interest, right? It's going to kind of get you, and that's why we feel like we saw the click-through rates, with a lot of that data. But you talked about something that I never really thought about, but the multiple touch points of how you want to survey, you want to ask. When it comes to the customer review, obviously NiceJob or reputation marketing software, so we know how important that is, and giving you the tools to automate it out through social sharing, as you mentioned. But the point of asking for a review, in some businesses there's a clear, okay, this is the point to do it. Do you think there could be a benefit of perhaps as part of your system, perhaps getting reviews at different parts of the process? Because maybe some of the hesitation with lawyers is, all right, is it all hanging on the outcome of the case? Though a lot of clients might just want to know of, the initial deposition or, the consult, like the other parts. I guess the fine-tune the question is how important is it to make sure that you're not just getting feedback at one point in the process? Because if you really want to advertise what your whole business is about, you want to have social proof at every sort of level. So I would assume that it's important to make sure that not only is it multiple touch points, but perhaps, I don't say like switching up a bit, but perhaps asking for a review a bit earlier in the process, because perhaps that gives you a different version of social proof that might help net a customer, correct?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I think that you have to, first of all, every lawyer has an ethical responsibility to know what the rules of professional conduct are in his or her state. So every state handles it a little bit differently. Some states look at soliciting reviews during the course of representation as being coercive, because the lawyer is the leader and the guide and the professional who is overseeing a difficult challenge for a litigant. And of course, litigants are now far more well-educated about the law because of the internet than they ever were before, but we still treat them as if they are uneducated about the system and that we have more power than they do. And so that power relationship becomes very important to preserve. And you don't want to overstep and have the impression of the client be, in order to have my lawyer continue to care about my case or continue to work my case, I have to tell the world how great they are, even if I'm not satisfied. So again, I don't know that that is the case in every jurisdiction. In fact, I know some jurisdictions it's expressly not the case, but you have to check your jurisdiction to know this. Now, having said that, the initiation of the case, nothing has really happened other than they had a positive customer service experience when they dealt with the receptionist, dealt with the intake professional, had that first consultation, and started the process. Starting the process doesn't ingratiate you to continue the process, and nothing has really happened. So you're a little bit safer if you do it at the start. But you're right, it is better to have it at the start, because what you really want to convey through the intake process in particular, when you get on that phone and start gathering data to get them scheduled, is you want to convey that they are turning over their problem to you. So the way that I liken this is that, you know, the process of meeting your law firm all the way to hiring your law firm is like a conveyor belt. Okay, there are 4 major steps on the process from start to finish on that conveyor belt. First step is reception. Who is the voice that's greeting me? Do I feel welcomed? Do I feel rushed off the phone? Did someone immediately respond? Did someone address my problem? Then the next step is the intake process. Who is the person gathering information? Do I feel that they're listening as I'm sharing my information? Do I feel that they genuinely want to help me, or that they're just trying to get money or kind of try to rush me over to buy the service? Then you have the sales process, the consultation, and there you're deepening the relationship with the client. So intake is about getting some urgency, finding out what their urgent need is, and getting them booked. At the sales process, that's where you are really delving into the problem. You're learning the players, you're learning the system, you're learning their urgent need, what matters to them about this problem, and how you can help resolve not just the legal problem, but really the stress in their life by getting them served. And then finally, the legal department, right? That's where we start the case. That's where we start filing things. That's where service of process happens. That's where law starts to encounter the problem. And so you have those 4 stages. And as the client is moving from prospect to client through those 4 stages, it's really important for you as a business owner to know what the experience is for your client. How does the client perceive every person and every transaction that they had? So you want to survey the client and get their perception on things, whether you use that in the public domain later or not, right? So you can publish your own stats. You don't publish client information, but you can say, 98% of the people who encountered us on the phone represented to us that our intake person made them feel welcomed. But there's nothing like the person who's ultimately giving that information on behalf of themselves saying, I came here, I was stressed, I was overwhelmed. I had a feeling that this law firm was going to be able to help me. Susie greeted me warmly. Dave got me on the phone and got some information and made me feel like my problem was going to be resolved. Stephen, spoke with me and took me through all of the different options. And then ultimately I started working with Catherine, my attorney, and she got me the result I wanted. And having touch points in all those different places gives people that perception that they're going to have an experience that they want to have. Even if they don't get the outcome that they want, most people are looking not only for the positive outcome, but really to be treated well in the process. They're paying for them what is a lot of money, what is a lot of time, and what is a big, stressful purchase. So you have to be sensitive to that when you are delivering that experience.
And perhaps that also sets the expectation, because you are asking for feedback at various stages, even perhaps before the official review. It sets the expectation of we are listening to concerns or questions you might have about the process. So not exactly the exact matter we're dealing with or things, but we want to know how you felt when we first talked on the phone. We want to know how you felt when you first came to sit down. We wanted to make sure that whole thing, so that if at some point a little down the line, it doesn't become at the end of the day, then out of nowhere, a bad review, is they're more likely to bring up like, hey, I really wish you were listening. They might not phrase it exactly correctly, but it's good to set the expectation of, hey, we aren't afraid of being told how we're doing. We
Yeah.
want this because this is the type of, business we are, this type of firm we are. And setting that has to create so much trust, but just a little bit of a warmth, for lack of a better word, that I think then becomes conveyed. So maybe they don't want to go publicly shouting it from the rooftops, but when a friend, family member, coworker, or something's in the same situation they are, that's more likely when they're going to give the referral of, actually, you know what, I did actually use them a little while ago, similar sort of thing, and it's just give them a call. Trust me, they'll handle you well. They'll look at you all great, and I love that perspective you shared of. One, checking me there and let me know that, there's certain times where you actually can't ask for the review, so it won't come off from that standpoint. But then also that, it should be a constant process all the way throughout, because sometimes I think people think of reviews as something that needs to come at the end. But if you're kind of getting feedback along the way, that also probably will leave, if they're willing to leave a review, a more detailed review, because you've reminded them of what the key points were. I asked you about our intake. I asked you about our paperwork. I asked you about, our facilities. And so when they go to actually write that review, they know what's important to you. Just like you're hoping to find out what's important to them, they know what's important to you. Allison, we could talk 4 hours about this, and I like to make the listeners have these nice, quick, and concise here. But I do know that you have some resources and some other things. So if people want to hear more from you, learn more about you, or anything like that, especially as it relates to some of the topics talked about today, where can we direct them to? Where should we send them towards?
Yeah. So for people who are interested in learning more about the sales process, I created a 5-video sales series. It's absolutely free to opt into it. And each day for 5 days, you get a video that explains the how to and the why for of every part of the sales process, the psychology of a buyer, the psychology of asking questions in a certain way, using your tone, using your authority, how to get over objections. All of that is in this training. And you can find that at bit.ly/LFM or Law Firm Mentor -sales video. Now, sales video, just so that you guys know, is not that I'm selling you something in this video. Okay, this is absolutely free. Once upon a time, it was video sales because that's what that's what the training was. But we had a problem with our link; it got broken, so it's now sales video. So again, bit.ly/LFM-sales video. And if you want to learn more about Law Firm Mentor and how we help people, you can find us on our website at lawfirmmentor.net. All one word, no spaces, no dashes. lawfirmmentor.net. And for those of you that love to listen to strategies, tips, tricks, some of the great information that people like Sean bring to you, I have my own podcast called the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. Sean is going to be on that podcast, and we're going to talk even more about reputation marketing and how important it is. But you can find that again at lawfirmmentor.net/podcast.
And for those listening on the live stream here, watching us on Facebook, we'll have that down in the comments in just a moment once we wrap up here. And if you're listening on the podcast version or on YouTube, you can already see it down in the episode description. We'll have that link ready to go for you, so you can just click away. And it will say for those listening that come from us, from the law community, whether you know NiceJob from our Clio integration or you came upon us in that regard, we're love you to check out Allison. If you are in another home service business, so you're not in a law profession or anything like that, I definitely would check out Allison's sales course as well. I actually was going to sneak a free download myself and kind of go through it because I love kind of intaking that information. But this is what I talk about at the top of the show, that kind of cross training is you never know in a different perspective. You think you have a complex business. Law firms are quite similar. You might think you have something where there's a little confidentiality or things your clients might have to share. Could be similar. So I definitely would recommend checking out what Allison has to offer. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being on your podcast, Allison. But I want to thank you truly for taking the time to join me on ours to get this information out. I know our listeners are going to take a lot from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Sean. This was great.
And yeah, I'll be on Allison's podcast soon. I'm sure we're going to hear more from her in the future. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the NiceJob Podcast. But wait, you're saying, but wait, Sean, you did not ask Allison the question that you asked everyone in season 2. So Allison, I'm going to bring it back in. We thought we were done, but I forgetting there's so much going on. We have the NiceJob Awards. My brain's kind of everywhere. I've been asking everyone in season 2 the same question. I want to give you the opportunity to answer it. And the premise is we have so many experts on the show here that are so knowledgeable in a lot of things, but I always know there's something you're working on. So my question to you is, what don't you know now that you're either working on finding the answer to, or you're just excited to kind of explore and figure out. And it doesn't have to be business related. I don't put you on the spot. Just what's out there. If it's business related, great. But if it's personal related, what don't you know now that you're either working on or you're eager to find the answer to?
So that's a great question. So we are working on kind of the perfect synergy of dividing up our community. We have so many different law firms and so many different sizes that we have starter uppers, and we also have 7-figure business owners. And we're in a process now of making sure that everyone gets served at their level. So we have different levels within our program, but what we are working on figuring out right now is the perfect mastermind for our $1 million plus business owners, so that they have a community that is within our community that is highly tailored toward making sure that when you reach a certain size and you have a certain level of employees, a certain number of employees, that you're able to bring all of the resources of Law Firm Mentor to bear on creating the culture that you want. Because what we find is that law firm owners are so focused on getting the sales and marketing dialed in so you can grow, because that's what drives the money. And the people in the systems create the continuity and the sustainability and the ease. You get that chaos out. But the thing that probably gets overlooked a lot is, how do you put human beings that are fundamentally different? They have different DISC profiles. They have different Myers-Briggs personalities. They have different goals for their individual life. They're driven by different activities. Some are driven by money, some by goals, some by group orientation. How do you put all that together in one incubator and then shake it up and get a culture that serves the needs of all? And so we are in the process of creating kind of a cultural boot camp, if you will, but baked into a mastermind for our larger law firm owners. So we are still in the iterations of figuring out how best to deliver that to them. And that is the project that we're working on right now.
Well, there's one thing I know for sure. It's going to end up being a finely tuned system once you get it all together, because I know you're very passionate about that. Well, I'm glad I got that question in. I almost forgot. I would have been up all night if I didn't ask that question. So I'm glad I will remember it. Thanks again to Allison for joining us, and I really appreciate the time.
I loved being here. Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
And for all of you that tuned in, thank you once again. I mean, it would be interesting, but it'd be nothing without you, our listeners. So thank you so much for tuning in and taking some time to learn with us today. We'll be back again next week with another great episode. We also have our Nice Job Rated Awards coming up on March 24th. Check out get.nicejob.co/nicejob-rated. I'll link to that as well to learn all about that, but it's an exciting time of year for us. So again, thank you once again to Allison Williams and to all of you for listening in. I hope you'll be healthy. I hope you'll be safe. And don't forget to have a little fun out there as well. Take care, everybody.